going to continue telling what happened after me and Tony from my story got our truck, which is where I left off. I've been getting a lot of emails from women who are doing their research right now on different companies, and I mentioned in a couple earlier videos I had met a couple women in person, some new students, and I actually met a couple women who were just fired and on their way home after a disastrous truck driver training experience. Two of them should have never been brought out here and recruited. One had a lot of emotional problems that did make this job was not cut out for her. The other girl was apparently a dump truck driver for several years and worked in construction for several years, always worked around a male-dominated environment, but when she entered OTR trucking, she was not cut out for it and got herself into a series of situations. I don't want to go too much in depth to it. I talked to her for a period of time, and she admitted at the end of that conversation that when she entered this, it was a little bit different because not being able to go home at the end of the night. Some of the allegations and situations that she got into were kind of serious, but that's why I'm doing this. You know, there are a lot of women who formerly were in domestic violence situations or had violence acted upon them as children, and there are a lot of women that have issues, trust issues with men. So it's sort of ironic that we find ourselves here in trucking, where it is a male-dominated industry, and then you have to get trained by someone, and so when you have those little triggers or those little things, little chips on your shoulder, it does hinder your learning ability, and if you do not have a way to get control of those things, then you're going to have a really difficult time kind of getting past this period. In any case, one of the girls actually was eliminated during her CDL school period, and that was because the instructor was telling her she needed to do a lap dance for him so that she could do better on her test, and she refused, and he flunked her the following day. I wrote to the owner of the school. Apparently he did get wind of the situation, and that instructor has been fired. This school recruits for one of the big training carriers that I have not been nice to, and they are a sponsor of Women in Trucking. I think you can guess who it is. The guy was real apologetic. I don't want to say his name, but at the end of the day, she's still the one that doesn't have a job. She's still the one that didn't pass her CDL school because of some jerk who can go off and get a job at some other CDL school now, you know. So I'd like to see these people eliminated from the industry. They aren't doing any good as an instructor, and they're not doing any business any good as being a liability to them. So, and then, you know, some people are not cut out for OTR life, and that's kind of what my lead-in wants to be to this next segment of my story. You know, when me and Tony from my story, when we finally got our truck and we started heading out west, well, the truck broke down when we got out there. We had some engine trouble with it. So when we got out there, Um, it went into the shop for a week. We were new. We didn't know. We didn't know we could get a motel. We stayed in the truck for like 3 nights at the mechanic shop, and they hadn't even put it into the mechanic's bay yet. We were sleeping in the truck in the mechanic's bay. During that time, I was still having nightmares. And on one of the nights, we weren't idling the truck. And on one of those nights, it got a little cold in the middle of the night. I slept on the top bunk, and it got really chilly. And Tony had gotten out of bed to turn on the engine of the truck to let the heater heat up the truck. When we went from silent truck to engine running, it made me wake up, and because I was still having the nightmares, I woke up in attack mode. I jumped off the bed and almost strangled him basically, and was trying to get out. That was from my nightmares, the trigger that was set off, that I spoke about earlier. And he was like, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I heard the end." It was just like dead silence, and then it was like boom. And my instinct was get up and start fighting, start swinging. Like, where were you gonna go? So anyway, he was kind of making fun of me that I had this reaction to it. But later on, when he got his butt in a sling, this was another one of his pieces of evidence why I was crazy. And if you're a woman that's ever had this situation, a woman would only under would a woman understands this when you get a guy, and he's trying to protect himself. Calling you crazy is like the best defense. So the fact that I jumped up off the bed and was ready to protect myself, that was his evidence that I was crazy. And so when we had our blowout, they were like, "Oh, okay, yeah," like they never talked to me or anything, asked me about what was going on with me or why I did jump off the bed like that. It stunned me to go from silence to vroom, from a dead sleep. And um, if you've ever been woken up, like I talked about with my rape, with a knife to your face, I'm a fighter. I'm not going to be going down like easily. Um, in any case, they finally did get us a motel room, one motel room, and so we had to share the motel room. And then he was off right away. "I think the maid likes me," and he was a real skirt chaser. So, and he was a drinker. So when he was off the truck, he was, a bottle of not a shot of tequila, a bottle of tequila. And of course that makes you feel a little like, I know him from school, I know him from work, but I don't know if he like goes out drinking and then comes back and is combative in the middle of the night. So we're having to stay in the same motel room. It was a weird situation. I mean, it worked out fine, but it was uncomfortable. It's hard to rest. So anyway, we had a week of downtime. These are things to consider when you're a student. Layover pay for that week. We may have gotten it, but then that's a whole other thing you need to negotiate, and you need to, um, you have to follow up on it all the time, because they are always like, "No, you didn't get that. No, they're always trying to trick you out of stuff. So you have to be the one that's documented it. You've got all the time down, because they're going to try and trip you up and make you think that you don't qualify for that when you do. But this was pretty late into, I want to say, February now, March. So there was a few storms still going on, and we happened to get caught in one. And so we were coming up over through Salt Lake City, and a really really bad storm came. He was in the sleeper and I was driving, and it was about at Parley Summit, which anybody that drives or lives in Utah knows gets a lot of snow just on the east side of Salt Lake City by Park City, and it just started coming down like paper plates, the snow. And we got a shutdown notice on our Qualcomm, and it said shut down immediately. Well, the snow was so bad we couldn't even see through the windshield. And I called him and I said, we got to shut down. So we made it up the hill, which is a very, very steep hill. And we could barely make out a sign ahead, and it said diesel. So we were like, get off, because it was terrible. So we got off and we made the left-hand turn, and turned out it was not a truck stop. It was not a diesel stop for trucks. It was for cars, and it was a small road leading into a residential area, and the snow is just coming down. And we went up over this small hill, and I saw the residential area, and we just stopped before we got any further and got ourselves in any trouble. And this man pulled up in a Volvo behind us, and he said, are you lost? And I said, yes. You know, I used to live in Utah. My ex-boyfriend's Mormon. There's a lot of really, really nice people in this particular area. I lived at Sundance, and I was familiar with the area. And I said, yes, we are. And he goes, don't worry, I own a trucking company. I would hate to think my drivers were out here in this condition like you. Let me help you find a place to park. And we were like, yay! And he directed us to a parking lot that was like one block up, and it would be closed for the whole weekend. And we turned the truck in there, and we parked. And it was a little bit at an incline, and the snow was coming down, and it was coming down. And we were shut down. I mean, but even the both of us could see that we had to go climb out in the snow to go to the bathroom and everything. It was like up to our hips. We get back in the truck and we watch a movie and we fell asleep. Well, at about 3 o'clock in the morning, we get a thing on the Qualcomm that says that the shutdown's lifted. We need to start rolling. Well, the road was plowed and we could see it, but we couldn't get out of the parking lot where we were at, and we couldn't get up on the road because it was totally covered. So that was a big lesson for us in lots of different ways, but at this particular moment what we needed to do is get out of that parking lot, which meant get up in reverse in the truck and pull out of this really, really heavy snow and get it turned around so that we could pull out straight. We didn't have chains, we had cables on the truck. And you know, Tony spent the whole time complaining and whining and oh me, oh my, oh, calling all his friends, and oh bro, you should see the situation we're in, dude, blah blah blah. And meanwhile, I was out there with the cables trying to figure out how to put them on the tires, and I did. I laid them all out, I got them all set up, and all he had to do is back up, and then we hook them together. And so I did it. And you know, he wasn't even done with his cigarettes, his phone calls, and out of his flip-flops, and I was done. So we hook them up and we start backing, and the tires are spinning and sparks are flying off, and one of them rips and the wires are flying. I mean, we could have been hurt with the flying wires and everything, but we did finally make it. We finally got out of that parking lot. It would have been terrible if we would have stayed there all night long, because the snow would have frozen. We would have been in an incline. There was just a hedge in front of us with about 2 feet of space, and we would have been so stuck. We were about ready to call the sheriff and ask for assistance when we finally made that corner and we finally got it out of there. So we were just, oh, we were thrilled. We pulled onto the freeway overpass there, right outside Park City. And we got up on the highway and we stopped on the shoulder so we could pull the cables off and start driving or get to a safe spot for the truck. And all of the sudden, this PT Cruiser just goes boom right in front of us and stops on the shoulder. And this guy starts coming out, and he's got a hoodie on, and he's coming right at me, just kind of rushing at me. He didn't see Tony. He only saw me. And one of the things that I first did when I was on the truck in the wintertime, I always wore a hoodie or a hat or something. So, especially at night, you didn't see that I was a girl. I had on very oversized clothes and I had on a hoodie. Well, here I am in Utah, and I got out to do this, and I didn't have a hoodie, I didn't have a hat. It was clear that I was a girl, that I was out on the side of the road by myself with this big truck. And this guy pulled over. I mean, it wasn't even 30 seconds, and this guy came and started at me. And he was like, I need a cigarette. I need some money. I need some money. And his eyes were bugging out of his head, and he had his hands in his hoodie pocket like he was approaching me in a way that was threatening. I said, I don't have any money, dude. We're totally broke, blah, blah, blah. I turned around to Tony and I said, Tony, he's stranded. He's neat. I was looking at Tony like, this dude is trying to jack us. Like, Tony was street smart. So he got what I was saying. So I just basically repeated what the guy said to me really fast and looked at Tony like, we need to get in the truck. We need to lock the doors. We need to get the hell out of here right now. And Tony understood what I was saying, and the guy was like, come on, man, I need a cigarette. I need $5. You got to give it to me. You got to give it to me. And he's got his thing. And the next thing you know, this other guy gets out of the PT Cruiser, and he starts coming at us, too. And he's like, do you have any money? Do you have any money? And I'm like, whoa. I mean, this is the last place you think that you're going to run into two tweakers trying to shake you down for money and cigarettes on the highway right outside Salt Lake City. But it was really a threatening situation. Anyway, Tony, he played right with me, and he was like, oh no, man, we're totally stranded too. Our company didn't give us any money. Sorry about that, dude. Sorry. And we got in and locked the doors, and both of us are like, roll. Got to the next truck stop. We shut it down because there was ice on the road ahead of us going into Wyoming. And both of us were like, wow, that happened really fast. He saw that truck on the side of the shoulder and a girl, and boom, he was coming. And it was a big lesson for both of us about the truck being sort of a magnet for criminals.